Here is the fully adapted and localized story, written as a continuous narrative prose ready for audio narration. My grandson called me late at night. "Grandma, I'm at the precinct. My stepmother hit me, but she's saying I attacked her. My dad doesn't believe me." When I got to the station, the officer went pale and mumbled, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." It was 2:47 in the morning when my phone shattered the silence of my house. At that hour, no call brings good news. Never. I reached out in the darkness, fumbling across the nightstand until I found my cell phone. The screen illuminated my face with that cold brightness that snaps you back to reality. It was Leo, my grandson, the only one who still called me Grandma without being forced to. "Leo? My boy? What happened?" My voice came out raspy from sleep, but my heart was already pounding as if it knew something was terribly wrong. What I heard on the other end froze my blood. "Grandma." His voice was trembling, broken by sobbing. "I'm at the precinct. Veronica. She hit me with a heavy candlestick. My eyebrow is bleeding. But she's saying I attacked her. That I pushed her down the stairs. My dad believes her. Grandma. He doesn't believe me." I felt the air leave my lungs. I sat up in bed, barefoot on the cold hardwood floor. Leo's words ricocheted inside my head like stray bullets. Veronica. My son's wife. The woman who, in 5 years, had achieved what I thought was impossible, turning David into a stranger. "Calm down, kid. Which precinct are you at?" "The 19th district. Grandma, I'm scared. There's an officer who says, if a responsible adult doesn't come, they're going to transfer me to." "Don't say another word." I interrupted him, already standing up, searching for my clothes with trembling hands. "I'm on my way. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Grandma." He hung up. I stood there in the middle of my bedroom, holding the phone as if it were the only real thing in that moment. My reflection in the closet mirror stared back at me, a 68-year-old woman with messy gray hair and deep circles under her eyes. But I didn't see a scared old lady. I saw Detective Martha Sullivan, the same woman who had worked for the Major Crimes Unit for 35 years. The same woman who had interrogated felons, solved impossible cold cases, and faced situations that would make anyone shake. And for the first time in 8 years, since my retirement, I felt that woman waking up again. I got dressed in less than 5 minutes. Black slacks, a gray sweater, my comfortable boots. I grabbed my purse and, almost by instinct, opened the top drawer of my dresser. There it was, my retired badge. I tucked it into the back pocket of my pants. I didn't know if it would do any good, but something told me I was going to need it tonight. When I stepped out onto the street, the city was submerged in that thick silence that only exists in the witching hour. I hailed a cab on the main avenue. The driver, a guy in his 50s, glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "Where to, ma'am?" 19th District Precinct. "And step on it, please." "It's an emergency." He nodded and hit the gas. I stared out the window without really seeing anything. I only thought about Leo, his broken voice, the words he had said. My dad doesn't believe me. David, my son. The boy I had raised alone after his father walked out when he was just 3. The man I gave everything to. Education, values, unconditional love. The same man who 5 years ago had stopped visiting me, who had stopped calling, who had erased me from his life as if I had never existed. And all because of her, Veronica. He met her at a high-end lounge where she worked as a hostess. He had just become a widower, devastated by the death of his first wife, Leo's mother. Veronica appeared like a saving angel. Young, beautiful, attentive, too perfect. I saw it from the beginning. I saw the way she looked at him, not with love, but with calculation, like someone evaluating an investment. But David was blind. He needed to fill the void left by his wife's death, and Veronica knew exactly how to fill it. Little by little, she began planting seeds of doubt in his head. "Your mother is very controlling, honey. She never lets you make your own decisions. She's always judging you." At first, David defended me, but drops of poison, when they fall one after another, eventually contaminate even the purest water. The visits became sporadic. The calls got shorter. Birthdays were forgotten. Thanksgiving dinners were skipped with made-up excuses. Until one day, he simply stopped reaching out. The only one who kept coming was Leo. On the weekends, he stayed with his father. He found a way to sneak out for a few hours to visit me. He brought me drawings from school. He told me his problems. He hugged me, as if he found the refuge in those arms that he no longer had in his own home. And I, like the fool I was, thought that eventually things would improve, that David would snap out of it. That time would bring him to his senses. I was so wrong. The cab pulled up in front of the station, a gray brick building with the lights blazing. I paid the driver and got out. My legs were shaking, but not from fear. From contained rage, I walked through the double doors. The desk sergeant, a young kid about 25, looked up from his computer. "Good evening. How can I help you?" "I'm here for Leo Sullivan, my grandson. He called me half an hour ago." The officer checked a log in front of him. "Ah, yes. The domestic dispute case. You are?" "His grandmother, Martha Sullivan." Something changed in his face when he heard my name. He went slightly pale. He looked at me more closely, as if he were trying to remember something. "Sullivan? Like? Detective Sullivan?" I pulled my retired badge from my pocket and placed it on the counter. The officer took it, looked at it, and his expression changed completely. He stood up immediately. "Good Lord. Detective, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were family. Please, where is my grandson?" My voice came out firm, without hesitation. The voice I had used hundreds of times to interrogate, to order, to make people understand I wasn't playing games. In the waiting area, with his parents and, well, the complainant, Captain Miller is handling the case. Miller. That name made me pause for a second. Tom Miller. He had been one of my rookies years ago. A good kid, fair, smart. Take me to him. The officer nodded and led me down a hallway I knew like the back of my hand. I had walked these same floors hundreds of times during my career. Every corner, every door, every crack in the wall brought back memories of a life I thought I had left behind. But that night I understood something. You never stop being who you were. You just pretend to have forgotten. We arrived at the waiting area, and there, in that cold space lit by fluorescent lights, I saw the scene that would change everything. Leo was sitting on a plastic chair, his right eyebrow clumsily bandaged with gauze. His eyes were red from crying. When he saw me, he jumped up. "Grandma." He ran to me and hugged my waist like when he was a toddler. I felt his body trembling against mine. I stroked his hair and whispered, "I'm here, kiddo. I'm here." But my gaze had already found the other two characters in this scene. David was standing by the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Shame, anger, guilt, and beside him, sitting with her legs crossed and a perfectly rehearsed victim expression, was Veronica. She was wearing a satin wine-colored robe, as if she had been dragged out of bed by force. She had a bruise on her left arm that looked fresh. Her chestnut hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She looked at me with those big, watery eyes as if saying, "Look what your grandson did to me." But I knew that look. I had seen it on dozens of perps who tried to con me during my career. The look of someone who knows how to act, who knows how to manipulate. "Martha," David said with a dry voice, not moving from his spot. "You didn't have to come." Those 5 words hurt me more than any physical blow. I didn't have time to respond because at that moment an office door opened and a man in his 50s with an impeccable uniform and a serious expression came out. Captain Tom Miller. When he saw me, he stopped dead in his tracks. "Detective Sullivan?" "Hello, Tom," I said calmly. "It's been a while." He walked over, clearly surprised. "I didn't know you were involved in this case. If I had known." "You know now," I interrupted him. "And I need you to explain exactly what is happening here. Because something told me that what I had heard on the phone was just the tip of the iceberg, and I was about to discover how deep the abyss was that my family had fallen into." Tom Miller led me to his office. Leo came with me, clinging to my hand as if he feared I might disappear. David and Veronica stayed in the waiting room. I could feel my son's gaze burning into my back, but I didn't turn around. I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. Miller's office was small but organized. A metal desk, 2 chairs in front of it, a filing cabinet in the corner, and a framed citation on the wall. Nothing had changed much since my days. Even the smell of stale coffee and paperwork was the same. "Sit down, please," Miller said, closing the door behind us. I sat in one of the chairs and Leo settled next to me. He kept his eyes down, hands clasped in his lap. Miller sat on the other side of the desk and opened a file. He sighed before speaking. "Detective, the situation is complicated. Just give me the facts," I said bluntly. "Her version first." Miller nodded and consulted his notes. Mrs. Veronica Sullivan filed the complaint at 11:43 p.m. She arrived accompanied by her husband, Mr. David Sullivan, your son. She alleges that at approximately 10:30 p.m., the minor, Leo, returned home past his curfew. When she reprimanded him, he reacted violently, pushed her down the stairs, and struck her on the arm. She has bruises that partially match her account. Each word was like a needle pricking my chest. I looked at Leo. He still had his head down, but I saw his hands shaking. "And my grandson's version?" I asked, although by Miller's tone I already knew no one had believed him. The minor alleges that Mrs. Sullivan was the one who assaulted him first. He says that when he got home, she was already angry, that she waited for him in the living room and, without saying a word, struck him with a blunt object. According to him, a silver candlestick. The wound on his eyebrow required 3 stitches. "Did you check for the candlestick?" Miller shook his head, uncomfortable. "Mrs. Sullivan says no such object exists, that the boy invented that story to justify his aggression. And here comes the problem, detective. The home security cameras were down tonight, just tonight." I leaned back in the chair, processing the information. It wasn't a coincidence. None of this was. "How convenient, right?" I murmured. Miller looked at me with that expression I knew well. The look of someone who knows something doesn't add up, but doesn't have enough evidence to act. The cameras had been down for 3 days, according to the husband. They were going to call the technician this week. And the neighbors' cameras? The street? We're in the process of checking, but the house is in a private gated community in Lake Forest. There are no public cameras nearby. Of course not. Veronica had planned this perfectly. Every detail, every move. This wasn't a fit of rage. It was premeditated. I turned to Leo. I put my hand over his. "Look at me, son." He raised his eyes slowly. They were full of fear and shame. "Tell me everything, from the beginning, and don't hide anything from me." Leo swallowed hard. He looked at Miller, then at me again. I was late because I stayed studying at a friend's house. I have a math exam on Monday. I got there at 10:15, not that late. But when I opened the door, Veronica was there, in the living room, lights off. Only the kitchen light was on. His voice started to crack, but he continued. She said, "You're late, you insolent brat." I told her I had texted my dad. She laughed and showed me my dad's phone. She had it. My dad was asleep. Then she said, "Your father doesn't care about you. Nobody cares about you. You're a burden in this house." Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "I just wanted to go up to my room, Grandma. I swear." But she grabbed my arm and pulled me. I tried to break free and then she grabbed the candlestick from the table and hit me here. He pointed to his bandaged eyebrow. I felt dizzy. I fell to the floor. And while I was there, bleeding, she made the bruises on herself by slamming against the wall. I saw her, Grandma. I saw her do it. Where was your father? Asleep in his room. She had given him some herbal tea because he said he was stressed. When he heard the noise and came down, everything was already staged. Veronica was crying, saying I had attacked her. My dad didn't even ask me. He just screamed that I was a disgrace and called the cops. I closed my eyes for a moment, took a deep breath. The rage I felt was like a contained fire in my chest. And the candlestick? She hid it before my dad came down. I don't know where she put it. I opened my eyes and looked directly at Miller. Tom, you knew my work for 20 years. Did you ever see me let an innocent person go down for something they didn't do? Never, Detective. My grandson is telling the truth, and I'm going to prove it. Miller rubbed his face with both hands. Martha, legally my hands are tied. It's a minor's word against two adults. The father supports the wife's version. I have no physical evidence for his story. The only thing I can do is release him into your temporary custody while we investigate. But I need you to sign as the responsible party. Do it. I'm taking charge. Miller pulled out some forms and started filling them out. Meanwhile, I watched Leo. That boy had grown so much in the last year. He was 16 now, almost a man. But in that moment, with his swollen eyes, he was the 7-year-old boy crying in my arms when his mother died. How long has this been going on, Leo? I asked quietly. He looked down again. What, Grandma? Don't ask me that. You know what I mean. There was a long silence. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. Finally, Leo spoke. About 6 months. It started with insults. Then she started breaking my things. My video game console, my notebooks, a soccer trophy you gave me. She said they were accidents. My dad believed her. Then she started hitting me. Slaps, shoves. Once she locked me in the basement all afternoon because I said I wanted to come see you. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I was afraid that if I told you, my dad would get more mad at you. Veronica always says you turn me against them. I thought if I held on a little longer, things would get better. But today was different. I saw something in her eyes, Grandma. I realized she wants me to disappear. Miller finished filling out the papers and slid them to me. I signed them without reading, trusting him. Then he stood up. I'm going to call your son to sign the release for the minor as well. Wait here. He left the office. Leo and I were left alone. I hugged him, this time tighter. I felt his body relax against mine, as if for the first time in hours he could breathe easy. Forgive me, kiddo. Forgive me for not realizing sooner. It's not your fault, Grandma. He was right, but that didn't make it hurt any less. The door opened. David entered. Alone. He didn't even look at me. He approached the desk, took the pen Miller extended, and signed the papers with jerky movements, as if every second in there hurt him. That's it, he said dryly. Can I go? David, I said, standing up. We need to talk. I have nothing to talk about with you, he replied without turning around. You made your choice. You chose to believe him instead of my wife. Your wife? What about your son? When did you stop caring about your own son? He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes froze my blood. There was no love. There was no guilt. There was only nothing. My son attacked my wife. The proof is there. Veronica has the bruises. He has a history of bad behavior at school. What history? Leo exploded. That's a lie. I've never had problems at school. You were suspended last week for fighting with a classmate because that classmate was harassing a girl. I was defending her. The principal congratulated me. But David didn't respond. He simply turned around and walked out of the office, closing the door with a sharp click. I stood there, feeling every piece of hope I had of recovering my son crumble. Miller put a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Martha. Don't be sorry, I replied, wiping away a tear. I took Leo by the hand. Let's go home. We walked out of the precinct into the cold Chicago night. Veronica and David were already gone. On the empty street, under the orange glow of the streetlights, I stopped for a moment. Leo looked at me. What are we going to do, Grandma? I looked him in the eyes. Those eyes that looked so much like my own. We're going to prove the truth, kiddo. And we're going to make her pay for every tear she made you shed. Because Veronica made a mistake tonight. A mistake that would cost her everything. She messed with my grandson. And nobody, absolutely nobody, hurts my family without me doing something about it. Detective Martha Sullivan was back. And if Veronica asked herself, why so much hatred toward an innocent kid? The truth was darker than I imagined. We arrived at my place as the sun was just starting to peek between the buildings. Leo walked silently beside me, dragging his feet from exhaustion and pain. I lived in a modest apartment in Wicker Park, a third-floor walk-up I had bought years ago. Every piece of furniture, every plate, every memory in those walls belonged to me. I opened the door and turned on the lights. The familiar smell of coffee and cinnamon welcomed me. I always left a cinnamon stick on the stove so the house smelled like home. "Come, sit on the couch," I told Leo. "I'm going to make you something to eat." "I'm not hungry, Grandma. I told you I'm going to make you something." He managed a weak smile and collapsed onto the brown fabric sofa. It was old but comfortable. I went to the kitchen and warmed up some milk. I made 2 mugs of hot cocoa with marshmallows, just like my mother taught me. I grabbed a couple of pastries I had bought from the bakery down the street. I returned to the living room with everything on a tray. Leo took the mug in his hands and took a sip. He closed his eyes, savoring it. For a moment, he seemed to forget everything that had happened. "Thanks, Grandma. Eat slowly. Then I'll give you something for the pain in your eyebrow." I sat next to him and drank my cocoa in silence. Outside, the city was waking up. You could hear the first buses, the rumble of the L train in the distance, the barking of Buster, the neighbor's dog on the second floor. "Grandma," Leo said after a while, "can I stay with you?" "Of course, for as long as you need." "No, I mean forever. I don't want to go back to that house." I set my mug on the coffee table and looked at him. "Leo, legally your father has custody. I can only keep you temporarily until the case is resolved. If you want to stay with me permanently, we'll have to do things right. With lawyers, with judges. But my dad will never agree. We don't know until we try." He shook his head. "He does everything Veronica tells him. Since they got married, it's like my dad is a different person. Do you know what I heard a week ago? What did you hear?" Leo lowered his voice as if someone could hear us. They were in their room. I was going to the bathroom and walked past their door. It was cracked open. Veronica was on the phone with someone. She was saying, "Relax, everything is going according to plan. When the old hag dies, David will inherit the house. We sell it and walk away with at least $2 million. With that, and what I already have stashed, we move to Maui. We open the boutique hotel like we always dreamed, and we ship the brat off to a military school in Alabama. Let them deal with him." I felt my blood boil. "Are you sure about what you heard?" "Completely sure, Grandma. That's why tonight when I got home late and she attacked me, I knew it was part of her plan. She wants to push me away from you. She wants you to see me as a problem. She wants my dad to see me like that too. And when I'm out of the way, she just has to wait for you." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Veronica was planning my death. Or at least, she was waiting for me to die soon. And in the meantime, she was going to destroy any bond that existed between my son and me, between Leo and his father. "Did you say anything to your dad?" I tried. The next day, when Veronica went to the salon, I told him what I had heard. Do you know what he told me? That I was making things up because I couldn't accept that he had rebuilt his life. That I was a resentful teenager. That Veronica had been very patient with me and that I only made her look bad. The helplessness I felt in that moment was crushing. My own son, the boy I had raised to be fair and honest, was completely blinded. "You're not making anything up, Leo. And I believe you. Every word." He rested his head on my shoulder and sighed. "Why does she hate us so much, Grandma?" "Because the hatred of people like Veronica doesn't come from the heart. It comes from ambition. To her, you and I are obstacles. Things standing between her and what she wants. Money, power, an easy life without working for it." I sat thinking in silence. I started connecting the dots. When David met Veronica, she told him she came from a wealthy family in Texas, that she had gone to private schools, that she worked as a hostess because she liked the social aspect, not out of necessity. But we never met her family. No relatives came to the wedding. When I asked David about it, he said Veronica was estranged from her parents due to personal issues. How convenient. "Leo, I need you to do me a favor. Anything, Grandma. Take out your phone. Show me the photos of the bruises you said you had from before." He pulled his cell phone from his pocket, unlocked the screen, and opened his gallery. He showed me a hidden folder. Bruises on his arms, back, legs, all recent, all date-stamped. "Why did you never show me this?" Because I was scared that if I did something, my dad would blame you. Veronica always says you turn me against them. Send me all those photos. Now, Leo obeyed. My phone started vibrating as the images arrived. His voice was a silent scream for help that no one had heard. Until now. Now I need you to sleep a little, I told him. Your eye is swollen and you need to rest. Use my room. I'll stay here on the couch. But, Grandma, no buts. Go to sleep. He got up, kissed me on the forehead, and went to my room. I heard him close the door. I sat there with my cell phone in hand, photos of my beaten grandson filling the screen. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a drawer in the living room hutch and pulled out an old leather-bound notebook. It was my case notebook, the same one I used when I was active duty. Inside were phone numbers, contacts, notes from old cases. I looked for a specific name, Karen Davis. She was younger than me, but just as tenacious. When I retired, she kept working a couple more years until she opened her own private investigation agency. We had seen each other few times since then, but I knew if anyone could help me, it was her. I dialed her number. It rang 4 times before she answered. Hello? A silence. Then, a sigh. Detective Sullivan, I haven't heard from you in ages. What time is it? 6:30 in the morning. I'm sorry to wake you, but I need your help. It's urgent. Talk to me. I told her everything. From Leo's call to what he had heard about Veronica's plans. I told her about the photos, the bruises, what I knew. Karen let out a long whistle. That woman is a pro, Martha. What you're describing isn't a cruel stepmother. She's a con artist. And a good one? That's exactly what I thought. I need you to run her. Full name, date of birth, everything you have. Veronica Sullivan, maiden name likely fake. Give me 2 days. I'm going to check priors, previous marriages, financial history. If she has skeletons in her closet, I'll find them. Thanks, Karen. Don't thank me yet. This is going to take work. And if we find something big, we're going to need more than goodwill to act. I know. But first, I need to know what the truth is. I stared at my phone. Then I looked around my small living room. The old furniture, the photos on the walls, the crucifix over the doorway. This place wasn't worth $2 million. But to me it was worth much more. It was worth every drop of sweat I had spilled working double shifts to buy it. She thought she could manipulate my son, torture my grandson, and wait for my death like someone waiting for a paycheck. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was turning orange and pink. A new day was beginning, and with it, my battle. Because Veronica had messed with the wrong family. I was a detective, a woman who had faced drug dealers, murderers, and criminals of all kinds. And none of them had ever managed to beat me. Veronica had just declared war, and I was going to make sure she lost. The investigation was just beginning, and what I discovered about Veronica made me realize that my grandson and I weren't her first victims. 2 days later, Karen arrived at my door. She had a thick folder under her arm and an expression I knew very well, the look of someone who just uncovered something rotten. Detective, you need to sit down before I show you this. I made coffee while Leo was in the shower. We sat at the dining table. Karen opened the folder and started pulling out documents, photographs, printouts. Veronica Sullivan. But that's not her real name. She was born Vanessa Jimenez in El Paso, Texas. 34 years old, not 32 like she told your son. First lie confirmed. She claims private schools. She finished high school at a public school, and there is no record of her stepping foot in any university. She worked as a waitress, promoter, and eventually a hostess in various casinos across the country. Karen placed a photo on the table. It was Veronica, but younger, maybe 23 or 24. She was with an older man, about 60, at a private estate. Her first marriage. She married Robert Foster at 24, owner of a chain of hardware stores in Ohio, widower, 2 adult children. The marriage lasted 2 years. Robert died of a heart attack. Veronica inherited a property valued at $800,000. The children tried to contest the will but couldn't. Everything was legal. One of them lives in Canada. The other, the younger daughter, filed a complaint against Veronica for harassment, but withdrew it a week later. When I tracked her down by phone and asked about it, she hung up on me. I called back and she said textually, "That woman is dangerous. I don't want to know anything about her or her cursed money." I felt a chill run down my spine. Karen put down another photo. Second marriage. Frank Miller, textile businessman in Pennsylvania, 58 years old, also a widower. They married when Veronica was 27. The marriage lasted barely a year and a half. Frank suffered a fall in his home that left him in a coma. He died 3 weeks later. Veronica sold the house and the business. She pocketed approximately $1.2 million. The fall? Yes. But they found nothing suspicious. Veronica said Frank had been drinking that night and slipped on the stairs. There were no witnesses. The home security cameras were down. I looked up sharply. Down? Just like at your son's house now, detective. Same pattern. My heart was beating so fast I could hear it in my ears. Is there more? Karen nodded and pulled out a third set of documents. Third marriage, John Vickers, retired civil engineer in Arizona, 62, widower. They married when Veronica was 30. This marriage ended differently. John didn't die, but his son, Paul Vickers, 26, disappeared 6 months after the wedding. He left his house one night and never came back. He left a text message to his father saying he needed time to think, that he was going backpacking in Europe. He hasn't been heard from in 4 years. John tried to look for him, but eventually gave up. He fell into severe depression and signed documents giving Veronica power of attorney over his finances. She committed him to a care facility and sold all his properties. Estimated gain: $1.5 million. I covered my face with my hands. This was worse than I had imagined. That boy, Paul, do you think? I don't know what happened to him, detective, but the pattern is clear. Veronica seeks out older men, widowers, with children. She marries them, and one way or another, those children end up out of the way, dead, missing, or intimidated. Then she keeps the money. And now she's with my son. David fits the profile perfectly. Young widower, with a teenage son and a mother who has a property in her name. She can't touch you directly while you're alive, but she can make your son inherit and then manipulate him to sell. That's why she wants to push Leo away, I said, understanding everything. Because Leo is an obstacle. He is the legitimate heir if something happened to David, and he is smart enough to see her as she is. Exactly. And that's why she's making him look like a delinquent. If she gets him sent to juvenile detention or legally disowned by his father, the path is clear. Karen pulled out another document. There's more. Veronica has an accomplice. His name is Arthur Sloan, a lawyer. He appeared in the 3 previous marriages. He handles the legal side: wills, powers of attorney, property sales. He splits the profits with Veronica. 50-50. Do you have proof of that? Suspicious wire transfers, always after every inheritance. Large amounts divided between accounts in the Cayman Islands. It's not definitive proof for a judge yet, but it's enough to start a formal investigation. I heard the bathroom door open. Leo walked out, hair wet, wearing the clean clothes I had lent him. When he saw Karen, he stopped. Good morning. Good morning, Leo. I'm Karen, a friend of your grandma's. He nodded and approached timidly. He saw the documents on the table. Is that about Veronica? I looked at Karen. She nodded slightly. I decided Leo deserved to know the truth. Sit down, son. I told him everything. Every marriage, every suspicious death, every disappearance. I saw his face go pale with every word. When I finished, his hands were shaking. So, she killed those people? We don't know for sure, Karen said. But the pattern is too consistent to be a coincidence. And I'm next, Leo whispered. She wants me to disappear like Paul. That's not going to happen, I said firmly, taking his hand. Because now we know who she is. And we're going to stop her. How? Leo asked. My dad won't believe us. He thinks you just want to break them up. I don't need your father to believe me. I need proof. Proof that neither he nor any judge can ignore. Karen leaned back in her chair. Detective, what are you thinking? I'm thinking Veronica is smart, but not as smart as she thinks. She made a mistake attacking Leo that night. She got overconfident. She thought her word and the fake bruises would be enough, but she left loose ends. Like what? The candlestick. Leo says she hid it. It has to be somewhere in that house. With Veronica's fingerprints and probably Leo's blood, that is physical evidence. But we can't go in to look for it without a warrant. I smiled slightly. No, but Leo can. Legally, that house is his home too. He has a right to be there and to retrieve his belongings. Leo looked at me with wide eyes. You want me to go back? Just for a couple of hours. With a pretext. You say you need your clothes, your school supplies, and while you're there, you look for the candlestick. But you won't go alone. What do you mean? I took out my phone and looked up something on an app. Then I showed the screen to Karen. Spy cameras, button-sized, can be sewn into clothes, transmit video in real time to a cell phone. Karen smiled. Detective, you haven't lost your touch. I never lost it. It was just sleeping. We spent the rest of the morning planning every detail. Karen would get the spy cameras. I would call David to ask him to let Leo pick up his things. And while Leo was inside, we would be outside, recording every second. But there was a risk. If Veronica suspected anything, she could act. She could hurt Leo again. Or worse. Grandma, Leo said, reading my concern. I want to do it. I have to do it. Not just for me. Also for Paul. For the other children. For everyone she hurt. I looked him in the eyes. He wasn't the scared kid from 2 nights ago anymore. There was something different about him. Determination. Courage. We follow the plan to the letter. No improvisation. If you feel you are in danger, get out immediately. Understood? Understood. That afternoon, I called David. He answered on the 3rd ring. What do you want, Mom? Leo needs his clothes and his school things. He's going over tomorrow to pick them up. I hope that's not a problem. There was a long silence. Is he going alone? Yes. It's his house too, isn't it? Or at least, that's what you used to say. Fine. But make it quick. Veronica doesn't want to see him. Don't worry. It'll be very quick. I hung up before he could respond. Karen arrived that night with the cameras. They were so small they looked like regular buttons. We sewed them into Leo's shirt, one on the chest and another on the shoulder. From my phone, we could see everything the cameras captured. Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I said, Veronica will be home because she doesn't work Tuesdays. David will be at the office. It's the perfect time. Leo nodded. He seemed calm, but I saw his hands trembling slightly while he ate dinner. That night, before going to sleep, I went into his room. He was lying down, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep? I'm scared, Grandma, but not of Veronica. I'm scared of what I'm going to find, of confirming that my dad is with a murderer. I sat on the edge of the bed and stroked his hair. Whatever we find tomorrow, we'll face it together. You are not alone, Leo, and you never will be as long as I'm alive. I love you, Grandma. I love you too, kiddo, more than words can say. He closed his eyes and eventually fell asleep. I stayed there a while longer, watching him breathe peacefully. I thought about all the dangers he would face the next day, all the things that could go wrong. But I also thought about something else. Veronica had underestimated this family. She had underestimated a brave boy who refused to be another victim, and she had underestimated a grandmother who had hunted bad guys her whole life. Tomorrow the snake would show its fangs, but we already had the antidote. The next day, Leo walked into that house with the cameras rolling. What we recorded that afternoon froze our blood and gave us the weapon we needed to destroy Veronica. It was 2:45 in the afternoon. Leo was standing in front of the mirror in my living room, checking his shirt. I was checking for the 10th time that the feed was working correctly on my phone. Audio clear, video clear, I said. Are you ready? Leo took a deep breath. Ready. Karen was outside in her car, half a block from David's house. We would be the backup. If anything went wrong, we would go in immediately. Remember, you go in. Say hello normally. Go to your room. Pack your clothes. Meanwhile, you observe. If you see the candlestick or any other evidence, you record it. But don't touch it. We don't want her to accuse you of stealing anything. Understood. And if she gets aggressive, I get out immediately. I gave him a tight hug. He smelled like soap and fear. It's time. We went down to Karen's car. I sat in the back seat with my phone in my hands, the screen showing what Leo's cameras saw. Karen drove in silence, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. We arrived in Lake Forest. David's house was large, 2 stories, with a front lawn and an electric gate. It was the life he built with his first wife. A house that should have been full of happy memories, but was now a prison. Leo got out of the car. We watched him walk toward the front door. On my phone, the image moved with every step he took. He rang the doorbell. The door opened, and there was Veronica. She was wearing black yoga pants and a fitted pink top. Without makeup, she looked younger, but also more calculating. Her eyes swept over Leo from top to bottom, like a predator evaluating its prey. "You came," she said with a flat voice. "I thought you'd chicken out. I'm here for my stuff. Your dad said you could. Your dad says a lot of things. Come in, but make it quick. I don't have all day." Leo entered. It was all there. The elegantly decorated living room, the marble floor, the paintings on the walls. Everything impeccable. Everything perfect. A facade. "Go to your room. You have 30 minutes, Veronica ordered, closing the door behind him. Leo went up the stairs. The camera recorded every detail. He reached his bedroom and opened the door. Total destruction. Leo's clothes thrown on the floor. His posters ripped from the walls. His desk overturned. Books scattered. His mattress stripped of sheets, as if a hurricane had passed through. "My God," whispered Karen, watching the screen from the rearview mirror. I heard Leo's trembling voice through the audio. "What happened to my room?" Veronica's voice came from downstairs, yelling. "You packed your mess like the pig you are. That is the state of your room." Leo began to pick up his clothes and stuff them into a backpack. His hands were shaking. The camera caught him pausing in front of a broken photo on the floor. It was a picture of him with his mother, taken a year before she died. The frame was shattered. The photo had a shoe print on it. I watched Leo pick it up carefully, wipe off the dust, and put it in his backpack. "Breathe, son," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't hear me. "Breathe." He finished packing his clothes. Then he opened his desk drawer, looking for his notebooks. That was when I saw it. On my phone screen, behind a pile of torn notebooks, there was something shining. "Stop," I told the phone. "Focus on that." As if he had heard me, Leo moved the notebooks. And there it was. A silver candlestick. Heavy, antique, with dark stains on the base. Blood. "He found it," Karen said. "That's it." Veronica's voice interrupted from the stairs. "Are you done? You've been up there 15 minutes. "Almost," Leo replied, his voice surprisingly calm. Quickly, with trembling hands, he took out his personal phone and took several photos of the candlestick. Then he left it exactly where it was and closed the drawer. "Well done," I murmured. Leo walked out of his room with the backpack on his shoulder. He started down the stairs. Veronica was waiting at the bottom, arms crossed. "Is that everything?" "Yes." "Perfect. This is my house, too." Veronica let out a cold laugh. "Your house? This house belongs to your father, and I am his wife. You are just an accident he had to put up with all these years." "My mom wasn't an accident." Veronica's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Your mom is dead, and your grandma will be soon too. It's a matter of time. Old hags like her don't last long, and when she dies, you're going to inherit that filthy apartment she lives in. We're going to sell it, we're moving far away, and you are going to stay in a military boarding school where you learn not to be so insolent. Is that why you hit defenseless kids? Because it makes you feel powerful?" Veronica took a step toward him. The camera captured her face perfectly. "Pure fury. I didn't touch you, you lying brat. You attacked me. And if you repeat that lie again, I will make sure you rot in juvie. I know the truth, and my grandma does too. Your grandma is nobody. She's a washed-up old lady who doesn't know when to give up. But she'll learn. Everyone learns eventually." At that moment, we heard another voice. A voice that made my world stop. "What are you talking about?" David had just walked through the front door. It was early. His tie was loose. He looked tired, aged. Nothing like the son I remembered. "Honey," Veronica said, changing her tone immediately to one sweet and concerned. You're home early. Leo was just leaving. David looked at his son, then at Veronica. Something in his expression told me he had heard more than she thought. I was hoping if he continues to behave badly, we will have to take measures, Veronica responded quickly. She said when Grandma dies you were going to sell her house, Leo said, his voice steady despite the fear. She said it exactly. That's a lie, Veronica exclaimed. David, baby, your son is making things up again to make me look bad to you. I'm not inventing anything to get you out of my life. David looked like a man on the verge of collapse. Leo, go. Now. Dad, I need you to listen to me. I said, get out. The scream resonated through the whole house. Leo took a step back, hurt. I squeezed my phone so hard I thought I was going to break it. Okay, Leo said quietly. I'm going. The door closed behind him. On the screen, we could still see David and Veronica in the living room. She approached him, put her hands on his chest. Honey, you're stressed. That boy is making you sick. We should. I need to be alone, David interrupted her, pulling away. He went up the stairs without saying another word. Veronica stood there, looking at her cell phone with a smile that froze my blood. She dialed a number. Arthur, it's me. We have to speed things up. The brat is causing problems. Yes, I know. Give me one more week and everything will be ready. The old lady won't know what hit her. She hung up. And in that moment, I knew we didn't have much time. Leo got to the car. He climbed in the back with me. His eyes were full of tears he refused to shed. I'm sorry, Grandma. I tried. Don't apologize, I said, hugging him. You did it perfectly. We got what we needed. Karen started the car and we drove away. On my phone, I reviewed the recordings. We had everything. The candlestick, Veronica's threats, her confession about selling my house, her call with Arthur. But more importantly, I had something that devastated me. The confirmation that my son was lost. That night, after Leo fell asleep, I went out to the balcony of my apartment. The city glowed under the streetlights. It was cold, or maybe it was just my heart feeling frozen. I thought about David as a child, how he ran to me every time I came home from work, how he hugged me and told me, Mom, I missed you all day. The nights I spent awake when he had a fever, the times I defended him when other kids made fun of him for not having a father. I gave everything for that boy. Everything. And for what? So a woman could come and steal him from me in less than 5 years? So he could look at me as if I were his enemy? The tears I had held back for days finally came out. I cried in silence so Leo wouldn't hear me. I cried for the son I lost, for the years I would never get back, for the words I would never hear from his mouth again. But I also cried from rage, because Veronica hadn't just taken my son, she had turned him into a stranger. She had poisoned him against me, against his own son, against everything that was once good in him. And that I could not forgive. I wiped my tears, took a deep breath, and in that moment, I made a decision. I was going to get my son back. I didn't know how. I didn't know how long it would take. But I was going to rip him from that woman's claws, even if it was the last thing I did in this life, because I was Martha Sullivan, and mothers like me don't give up, never. Even if the whole world is against us, even if our own children have forgotten us, we don't give up. But before getting my son back, I had to destroy Veronica. And for that, I needed more than recordings. I needed a perfect trap. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No more tears, no more doubts, just one goal. Destroy Veronica Sullivan before she destroyed what little was left of my family. I made strong coffee and sat at the dining table with my old notebook. Karen would arrive in an hour. Leo was still sleeping. He needed that rest after yesterday. I started writing down everything we knew. Physical evidence, candlestick with Leo's blood. In David's house, we can't touch it without a warrant. Testimonial evidence. Recording of Veronica threatening, talking about selling my house, mentioning Arthur. Background: 3 previous marriages, 2 suspicious deaths, 1 disappearance, millions of dollars inherited. Accomplice: Arthur Sloan, lawyer, handles the legal side of the scams. But something bothered me. All of that was circumstantial. A good lawyer could tear apart our case saying the recordings were taken out of context, that the previous marriages proved nothing, that we were a resentful grandmother inventing stories. I needed more. I needed Veronica to incriminate herself so clearly that not even the best lawyer could save her. Karen arrived promptly at 8. She brought 2 extra coffees and a face that said she hadn't slept well. "What do you have in mind, detective?" "I know that look. It's the same one you had when we were about to crack a tough case." I smiled slightly. "We're going to set a trap for Veronica. But for that, I need her to believe I'm vulnerable, that I'm defeated." "How?" "I'm going to do something that goes against every instinct I have. I'm going to give her exactly what she wants." Karen frowned. "I don't follow." I pulled an envelope from my purse. Inside were documents I had prepared the night before while I couldn't sleep. Voluntary transfer of property documents for my house, to David's name. Signed by me. Karen's eyes went wide. "Detective, you can't be serious. They're not real." "Well, the documents look real. But they have a hidden clause in fine print that automatically invalidates them if coercion, threat, or fraud is proven. A notary friend helped me prepare them last night. They look legitimate, but legally they're worthless if there's pressure involved. And how are you going to make Veronica take the bait?" "I'm going to contact her. I'm going to tell her I'm tired of fighting, that I want peace, that I'm willing to sign my house over to David if she leaves Leo alone. But with one condition. I want her and her lawyer to come personally to my house to close the deal. And while they are here, I record them. Everything. Every word, every threat, every confession that slips out. Because people like Veronica can't help gloating when they think they've won." Karen leaned back in her chair, processing the plan. "It's risky. If she realizes it's a trap, she could get violent. That's why you're going to be here, hidden in my room. And I'm going to have hidden cameras in the whole living room and dining room. Professional quality audio and video. All legal because it's my house, and I have the right to record what happens inside it. And if she accepts the documents and simply leaves without saying anything incriminating, she won't. I know women like her. When they think they've won, they can't resist the temptation to rub it in your face. They'll want me to know they beat me, and in that moment, they'll lower their guard." Leo walked out of the bedroom then, disheveled and eyes puffy. Seeing us, he stopped. "What's going on?" I explained the plan. I saw his face go from fear to worry and finally to determination. "And what do? You stay at Karen's house that day. I don't want you here when they come. It's too dangerous." "But Grandma, non-negotiable, Leo. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on this." He didn't argue further. He knew when I used that tone, there was no turning back. We spent the rest of the day preparing everything. Karen got 4 professional spy cameras. We installed them in strategic places, one in the bookshelf, another in the wall clock, a third on the kitchen shelf, and the last one in my floor lamp. From the bedroom, Karen could see and record everything on her laptop. I also staged my apartment to look vulnerable. I left fake hospital bills on the dining table, prepared by Karen. I put medicine bottles in the kitchen. I wanted Veronica to think I was sick, weak, desperate. The next morning, I picked up my phone. My hands trembled slightly as I dialed David's number. He answered on the 4th ring. "What do you want now, Mom? I need to speak with Veronica. It's important." Silence. Then, the sound of footsteps. David passed the phone to his wife. "Martha?" Veronica's voice sounded cautious, almost amused. "What a surprise. We need to talk. About the house, about Leo, about everything. We have nothing to talk about. Please." I let my voice sound tired, defeated. "I'm tired of fighting. I just want my grandson to be safe and my son to be happy. If that means giving in, then that's what I'll do." There was a long silence. I could imagine Veronica smiling on the other end. Giving in. In what sense exactly? The house. I know eventually David will inherit it, but I've been sick lately. My heart isn't good. The doctors say it could be a matter of months, maybe a year. I don't want to die knowing I left a legal problem for my son. How considerate of you. The sarcasm in her voice was evident. I'm willing to sign documents transferring the property to David's name now, but with one condition: that you leave Leo alone, that you drop the charges, that you allow him to live with me for whatever life I have left." Another silence. I could hear voices in the background. Veronica was consulting with someone, probably Arthur. "When do you want to do this?" "Tomorrow, 3 p.m., at my place. Bring your lawyer if you want. I want everything to be legal and definitive." Why the sudden change of heart, Martha? Because I'm tired. Because I don't have the strength to fight anymore. And because at the end of the day, my son chose, and he didn't choose me. Those last words hurt to say, because they were true. "Tomorrow at 3 then," Veronica said. "And I hope you're not playing with me, old woman, because if you are, I assure you you'll regret it. I'm not playing. I just want peace." She hung up. I stared at the phone, heart beating furiously. Karen put a hand on my shoulder. "You did great, detective," sounded convincing. "It's because part of it is true," I admitted. "I am tired. And David did choose her over me. But we're not going to let her win. No, we're going to make sure she loses everything." The rest of the day we spent reviewing every detail of the plan. Where would I sit? Where would they sit? What questions to ask to get them talking? How to provoke them subtly so they felt confident. That night, before sleeping, I went into Leo's room. He was lying down, staring at the ceiling. "Nervous, Grandma?" "A little, but more than nervous, I'm angry. And that anger is what's going to give me strength tomorrow. And if something goes wrong?" "Nothing is going to go wrong. Trust me." He sat up in bed and hugged me. "I always trust you, Grandma. You're the strongest person I know. And you are the reason I keep fighting." The next day, Karen came early. We checked the cameras one last time. Everything worked perfectly. At 1 p.m., we took Leo to Karen's house. Her husband, a calm and reliable man, stayed with him. "Don't leave the house for any reason," I told Leo. "And keep your phone on. Be careful, Grandma. I always am." Karen and I returned to my apartment. She set up in my bedroom with her laptop, headphones, and a professional recorder. I stayed in the living room, waiting. At 2:55, the doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, stood up, smoothed my gray blouse and dark skirt. I had chosen clothes that made me look older, frailer. I opened the door. There they were. Veronica, in a beige office dress and high heels. Beside her, a man in his 50s, impeccable suit, briefcase in hand, Arthur Sloane, without a doubt. And behind them, with an uncomfortable expression, was David. "Come in," I said softly. "I was waiting for you." Veronica entered first, looking at my home with barely disguised contempt. Arthur followed, evaluating everything with lawyer eyes. David entered last, not meeting my gaze. "Sit down, please." I pointed to the sofa and the dining chairs. Veronica sat in the main armchair like she owned the place. Arthur next to her. David in a chair apart, looking like he wanted to disappear. I sat facing them, and in that moment, with the cameras recording every second, the final game began. "Thank you for coming," I said. "I know this isn't easy for any of us." Veronica smiled. That predator smile I had seen so many times on criminals who thought they had won. "Ah, Martha, I always knew you'd eventually see reason." And so it began. The trap was set. The poison was served. Now we just had to see if the snake was arrogant enough to drink it. What Veronica and her accomplice said that afternoon, believing they had won, sealed their fate. Every word was a confession. Every smile, another piece of evidence of their guilt. Arthur Sloane opened his briefcase and pulled out a folder with documents. He placed them on the coffee table with precise, calculated movements. He was a man of measured gestures, with slicked-back hair and gold-rimmed glasses that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. "Mrs. Sullivan," he began with a professional voice, "I understand you wish to transfer the property located at 247 Wicker Park Avenue, Unit 302, to your son David Sullivan. Is that correct?" "That is correct," I replied, keeping my voice tired, resigned. "Excellent. I have prepared the necessary documents. I just need you to review and sign here, here, and here." He pointed to several lines with his luxury pen. I took the papers. I pretended to read them carefully. In reality, I was observing everyone's reactions. David looked at the floor, uncomfortable. Veronica couldn't hide the glint of triumph in her eyes. Arthur kept his professional mask, but I saw him exchange a quick glance with Veronica. "These documents," I said slowly, "indicate that I am transferring the property voluntarily without receiving anything in return. Correct?" "Correct," Arthur replied. "It is a living donation to your direct heir. Perfectly legal." "And what about Leo?" asked Veronica sharply, crossing her legs. "Dear Martha, let's be realistic. Your grandson attacked an adult woman. That is a felony. I can't just forget it." "But you said." "I didn't say anything," she interrupted me with a cold smile. "You said you wanted to sign over the house. I simply agreed to come witness this act of maternal generosity." The venom in her words was evident. I looked at David. "Do you think that too? Do you think your son deserves to be in a reform school?" David finally looked up. There was something in his eyes. Shame, guilt, but he said nothing. He simply looked down again. "David has learned to trust me," said Veronica, putting her hand on my son's arm with a possessive gesture. "He knows I only want what's best for our family. And frankly, Leo has been a problem since I came into your lives." "A problem?" I repeated. "He's a child. He's a manipulator," spat Veronica. "Like you, trying to separate us with lies and drama." Arthur cleared his throat uncomfortably, as if Veronica was saying more than she should. But she didn't stop. "Do you know how many times that brat has tried to convince David that I'm a bad person? How many lies he's invented about me?" "Maybe they weren't lies," I said softly. Veronica's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "Nothing, just that a child generally tells the truth when they're scared." Veronica let out a dry laugh. "Oh, Martha, always so dramatic, just like your grandson. I guess it runs in the family. But it doesn't matter anymore, does it? Because you are going to sign those papers. You are going to stay in this apartment until nature takes its course. And Leo will learn his lesson in a place where they teach real discipline." "Veronica," said Arthur quietly, warning her. But she was on a roll. I could see the power had gone to her head. "What?" she snapped at Arthur. "It's the truth. This old woman is finished. Look at her. Sick, alone, defeated. She should have accepted this from the start. Would have saved me so much work." "Work?" I asked, playing naive. "Yes, work," Veronica replied, leaning back in the armchair like a queen on her throne. "Do you have any idea how much effort it took me to make David forget you? Every birthday he forgot. Every call he didn't take. Every visit he couldn't make. All planned, all executed to perfection." David looked at her, surprised. "What did you say?" "Oh, please, honey," Veronica shot him a glance. "Don't act surprised. You knew perfectly well that I managed your schedule, that I decided who you spent time with and who you didn't." I thought. David hesitated. "I thought you were just helping me get organized." "Oh, David, so naive," Veronica laughed. "I was keeping you away from this woman because she was in the way. And it worked, right? Now you can't even stand her." I saw something break in my son's eyes, like a veil falling. Arthur intervened quickly, standing up. "Veronica, I think we should focus on the documents." "Sit down, Arthur," ordered Veronica without looking at him. "I'm talking." He obeyed, but I saw the nervousness in his face. He knew Veronica was losing control. "Do you know what the best part of all this is, Martha?" continued Veronica. "That when you finally die, and believe me, with that heart of yours, it won't be long, we're going to sell this dump for $2 million. I already have a buyer, an investor who wants to remodel the whole building." $2 million? I repeated. "Uh-huh. And with that money, plus what I already have saved from my previous investments, David and I are moving to Maui. We're opening a boutique hotel. I already have the land reserved." "And Leo?" I asked. "Leo is going to a military boarding school in Alabama. It's all arranged. As soon as he turns 18, he's on his own. He won't be our problem anymore." "Veronica, stop," said David, standing up. "What are you talking about? We never discussed any of that." "Because you don't have to discuss anything, honey," replied Veronica condescendingly. I handle everything, like always. Like I handled pushing this old lady away, controlling your son, planning our future. You handled keeping my mother away? David's voice trembled. Someone had to do it. She wasn't going to let you go. Mothers like her are toxic. They cling to their children like leeches. I bit my lip not to scream. I needed her to keep talking. And the candlestick? I said softly. Did you handle that too? Veronica looked at me and smiled. Ah, that. Yes, it was clever, wasn't it? The brat came home late. I was sick of his judging looks, his passive-aggressive comments. So when he came in, I gave him what he deserved. A good hit with the silver candlestick my dear dead mother-in-law gave us. Ironic, isn't it? David was pale. You hit him first? Of course. But then I threw myself against the wall. Some strategic bruises, some well-acted tears, and you believed me, like always. Veronica, Arthur tried to interrupt her again. Shut up, Arthur, she exploded. This is over. The old lady is going to sign. We're getting the house, and in a few months we'll be in Maui counting cash. Just like we planned. Just like we planned with Robert, I said quietly, and with Frank, and with John. Veronica's face froze. Arthur jumped up. That's enough. We're leaving. Sit down, Arthur, I said, and this time my voice didn't sound tired or defeated. It sounded like the detective I was for 35 years. Because this is just beginning. I stood up and walked to my bedroom door. I opened it. Karen walked out with her laptop in her hands. Good afternoon, Karen said. Private investigator Karen Davis. Everything you just said has been recorded in high-definition audio and video. The color drained from Veronica's face. That is illegal. Not at all, I replied. We are in my house. I have the right to record what happens inside my property. And you just confessed to multiple crimes. Coercion, fraud, assault on a minor, conspiracy. Arthur was already at the door trying to flee. But Karen blocked his path. I wouldn't move if I were you, counselor. Outside there are 2 officers from the 19th District waiting. Old friends of Detective Sullivan. It was true. I had called Miller that morning. He had agreed to be close by, in case things got violent. Veronica stood up, furious. This won't hold up in any court. You set a trap for us. I set a trap that you bit into with all the enthusiasm in the world, I replied coldly. Because you're arrogant. Because you thought you were invincible. Because you thought an old woman like me couldn't stand up to you. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. I put it on speaker. Captain Miller, you can come up now. We heard footsteps on the stairs. Moments later, 2 officers entered with Miller in front. Detective Sullivan, he greeted me. Do you have what we needed? Everything, replied Karen, showing him the laptop. Full confession, threats, admission of assault on a minor, conspiracy to commit fraud. Miller looked at Veronica and Arthur. Veronica Sullivan, alias Vanessa Jimenez, and Arthur Sloan. You are under arrest for the crimes of... This is a setup, screamed Veronica. David, say something. Defend me. We all turned to look at my son. He was sitting in the chair, hands covering his face. His shoulders were shaking. When he finally spoke, his voice was broken. Was it all a lie? Everything you told me about my mother, about Leo, about everything? Veronica looked at him, and for the first time I saw something resembling panic in her eyes. Baby, no. I love you. Everything I did was for us. You used me? Said David, looking up. He had tears in his eyes. You kept me from my mother. You hit my son. All for money. It wasn't just for money, insisted Veronica. I wanted a better life for us. Liar. David exploded, standing up. You never loved me. You just wanted my inheritance, like you did with the others. The officers handcuffed Veronica. She kept screaming, trying to reach David. David, please, don't let them take me. I'm your wife. But my son just turned his back. Arthur was handcuffed in silence, with the resignation of someone who knows the game is over. As they took them out of the apartment, Miller approached me. Detective, I need you to come in tomorrow to give a formal statement. This is going to be long, but with this evidence, there's no way they're walking free. I'll be there. When they left, it was just Karen, David, and me. The The silence was deafening. David looked at me, and for the first time in 5 years, he really saw me. "Mom," his voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I wanted to run to him. I wanted to hug him. But something stopped me. Years of pain. Years of abandonment. Years of tears. "No, David," I said softly. "Not yet. A sorry doesn't fix 5 years of forgetting me. It doesn't fix that you believed a stranger over your own mother. It doesn't fix that you let that woman hit your son." He nodded, tears rolling down his face. "I know. You're right. I don't deserve your forgiveness." "It's not about deserving it," I replied. "It's about earning it. And that is going to take time. A lot of time." I walked over to him, put my hand on his cheek. "But you are my son. And even though you forgot me, I never forgot you. So we are going to heal this. Together, slowly. But only if you are willing to do the real work. Anything, Mom. Anything." Karen packed her things discreetly and said goodbye. When she left, David and I stayed in my living room. The same place where years ago I played with him as a child. The same place where we celebrated his birthdays. The same place he had stopped visiting. "Where is Leo?" he asked. "Safe, with Karen and her husband. I need to see him. His voice broke. "I need to ask for his forgiveness. You will, but first you need to understand something, David. Leo suffered. For months. And you didn't see it. Not because you couldn't, but because you chose not to see it. I know. And I'm going to carry that guilt the rest of my life. Good. Because that guilt is going to remind you never to fail like that again." We stayed in silence for a moment. Then I hugged him, and he cried in my arms like when he was a boy. Because at the end of the day, he was still my son, and even though he had broken my heart, I was his mother, and mothers never stop loving, even when it hurts. Justice was just beginning. But the hardest part wouldn't be watching Veronica pay for her crimes. It would be rebuilding a family that she had destroyed piece by piece. 1 week later, I found myself sitting in a restaurant downtown. I had chosen the spot carefully, the Italian Village. A spacious place, known for its traditional food and family atmosphere. It had tables far enough apart for privacy, but was busy enough to have witnesses for what was about to happen. Karen was at a nearby table, with her laptop and recording equipment discreetly hidden. Captain Miller had agreed to come too, off duty, but present, and I had invited a notary. Mr. Henderson, a man in his 60s who had worked with me on several cases back in the day. Someone I trusted completely, but the most important invitation I had made 3 days ago when I called David. "I need you to come to a meeting," I told him. "Bring Veronica. Mom, she's under house arrest. Arthur got her bail while they wait for trial." "I know. That's why I need her to come. Tell her I have a proposal, that I want to resolve this without going to trial." "Are you serious?" "Completely. 3 p.m., Saturday. The Italian Village. You, her, and me. Talking like adults." David hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea, Mom. Trust me, son. Just one more time." And he accepted. Now, sitting at that round table, waiting. I had ordered a pitcher of iced tea and a basket of bread. My hands were calm, my breathing controlled, but inside, my heart was beating like a war drum. They arrived at 3:05. David came in a white shirt and jeans, deep circles marking his face. He had lost weight in the last week. Veronica walked beside him with her head held high, dressed in a black power suit and dark sunglasses. She wore an electronic ankle monitor, barely visible under her pants. They sat across from me. Veronica took off her glasses and looked at me with a mix of hatred and curiosity. "Here we are, Martha. You said you had a proposal." "That's right," I replied calmly. "But before getting to that, there are people I want you to meet." I made a signal. Miller approached our table, followed by Mr. Henderson. Veronica tensed immediately. "What is this?" she asked. "This is a meeting to clear things up once and for all," I said. "Captain Miller, Mr. Henderson, please take a seat." Saturday, David looked confused from one to the other. Veronica had her fists clenched on the table. "Veronica Sullivan," I began. or should I say, Vanessa Jimenez. In the last 2 weeks, we have investigated every aspect of your life, and we have found things fascinating. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do. But let me refresh your memory. I pulled a tablet from my purse. I turned it on and placed a photo on the table. It was Robert Foster, Veronica's first husband, Robert Foster, 60 years old when he died, sudden heart attack. You inherited $800,000. That was years ago. And it was completely legal. Legal, yes, but suspicious, especially when we reviewed the medical records. Robert never had heart problems before marrying you. But during the 2 years of marriage, he visited the doctor 6 times complaining of dizziness, nausea, weakness. Symptoms consistent with digitalis poisoning. David went pale. Poisoning? Digitalis is a substance extracted from foxglove plants, explained Miller. In small, constant doses, it causes symptoms that look like natural heart problems. In high enough doses, it causes deadly cardiac arrest. That is ridiculous, said Veronica, but her voice trembled slightly. You don't have proof of that? You're right. We don't. Robert was cremated. But we have his daughter, Patricia Foster, who finally agreed to talk to us. I made another signal. Karen pressed something on her laptop. From the speakers near the table, an audio recording began to play. It was the voice of a middle-aged woman. I always knew Veronica killed my father. He was a healthy man until he married her. He started getting sick little by little. Loss of appetite, confusion, extreme fatigue. We begged him to go to the doctor, to get full tests. But Veronica always said he was fine, that it was just stress. One night he simply dropped dead in the living room. She cried at the funeral, but I saw her counting the money when she sold my father's house a week later. Veronica stood up abruptly. That bitch always hated me. She was jealous because her father loved me more than her. Sit down, I said with a firm voice, because I'm not done yet. I changed the photo on the tablet. Now Frank Miller appeared. Frank Miller, 58 years old, fell down the stairs of his house. Died 3 weeks later. $1.2 million inheritance. The security cameras, conveniently, were down that night. It was an accident, insisted Veronica. A very convenient accident, especially considering Frank had updated his will a week before, leaving you everything. And especially suspicious when we spoke to his personal doctor, who told us Frank was considering divorcing you because he had discovered suspicious transfers from his bank account. David looked at me. Is that true? Completely, replied Miller. We have bank statements showing transfers of $150,000 in 3 months, from Frank's account to an account in the Cayman Islands, an account shared by Veronica and Arthur Sloan. Veronica was livid now. Those are lies. They aren't, I interrupted her. And then there is John Vickers and his son Paul. I placed another photo, a young man of 26, smiling, in a college graduation photo. Paul Vickers, civil engineer like his father. Disappeared 6 months after you married John. Left a text message saying he was going abroad. Never heard from again. That kid decided to leave on his own. He didn't, I said firmly, because we found Paul. The silence was absolute. Even the noise of the restaurant seemed to stop. What? Whispered Veronica. Karen approached with another laptop. On the screen, a video appeared. It was a young man, thin, with a scruffy beard, sitting in what looked like a hospital room. I pressed play. The young man in the video began to speak. My name is Paul Vickers. I am 30 years old. 4 years ago, Veronica Sullivan, my father's wife, drugged me with something in my coffee. When I woke up, I was in a place I didn't recognize. A man named Arthur Sloan told me that if I returned to the U.S. or contacted my father, he would ensure my father had a fatal accident. He gave me money, a fake passport, and sent me to Guatemala. I've lived there since then, afraid to return. But when Investigator Davis found me and told me Veronica was doing the same to another family, I knew I had to speak. Veronica collapsed in her chair. Her face had lost all color. No. Paul is in protective custody now, said Miller. He is going to testify, and with his testimony, plus the recordings we have of you, plus the bank statements, plus the testimonies of the previous families, Veronica, you are going to spend the rest of your life in prison. And Arthur Sloane too, I added. He flipped, by the way. When we showed him all the evidence, he made a deal with the DA. He confessed everything in exchange for a reduced sentence. He gave us details of every case, every scam, every crime. David had his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. My God, my God. Veronica looked at me with pure hatred. You were always a damn busybody. No, I replied. I am a mother protecting her family, and I am an ex-detective who knows how to recognize a criminal when she has one in front of her. I stood up. Mr. Henderson took some documents out of his briefcase. The documents you signed in my house are completely void, by the way. The coercion clause automatically invalidates them. My property is still mine, and Leo is under my full legal custody now. David signed the papers yesterday. I looked at my son. He nodded with tears in his eyes. Veronica Sullivan, said Miller, standing up, you are formally charged with aggravated fraud, extortion, attempted homicide, kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. Your house arrest has been revoked. Officers, please. 2 police officers who had been waiting nearby approached. Veronica tried to resist while they put the handcuffs on her. David, help me. Tell them this is a mistake. David looked at her. Tears rolled down his face. But when he spoke, his voice was firm. I can't help you, Veronica, because all of this is true. And I was too blind to see it. As they took her away, Veronica screamed, cursed, threatened. But no one was listening anymore. The other diners in the restaurant watched the scene with a mix of shock and curiosity. When the restaurant finally returned to relative silence, David looked at me. Why did you do it here? Why not simply at the station? Because you needed to see it, son. You needed to see who she really was. With witnesses, with evidence, without a doubt. You needed your last image of her not to be that of a crying victim saying you are cruel. You needed to see the real Veronica, a cornered criminal who will finally pay for her crimes. David nodded slowly. And now what? Now comes the hard part, I said, sitting down again. Rebuilding our family, healing the wounds, making up for lost time. Do you think it's possible? I don't know. But we're going to try. Because despite everything, you are still my son, and Leo deserves to have his father back. Miller and Mr. Henderson said goodbye discreetly. Karen packed up her equipment and left too, not before giving me a conspiratorial wink. David and I were left alone at that table, with a pitcher of iced tea half drunk and bread no one had touched. Can I see Leo today? Asked David. If he wants to see you, yes. And if he doesn't want to? Then you will wait, and you will keep waiting until he is ready. Because that is what parents do, David. They wait, they fight, they don't give up. Like you never gave up on me. Like I never gave up on you. I paid the check and we walked out of the restaurant together. The afternoon sun painted the sky orange and pink. The city buzzed with its usual noise. Horns, pedestrians, music coming from a nearby shop. It was an ordinary day for everyone else. But for us, it was the first day of the rest of our lives. The first day without Veronica poisoning everything around her. The first day of a possible healing. And although the road would be long and painful, at least now we could walk it together. Veronica would face justice. But the real battle was just beginning, proving to Leo that we could be a family again, and that would require something more than evidence and arrests. It would require love, patience, and time. 3 months after the arrest, I found myself sitting in a courtroom at the Criminal Courts building. The place smelled of old wood and stress. The polished wooden benches were full of people. Reporters who had followed the case, curious onlookers, families of Veronica's previous victims. Leo was sitting to my right, wearing a suit we had bought him specially for this occasion. To my left, David. In the previous weeks, father and son had begun a slow reconciliation process. It wasn't easy. There were tears, uncomfortable silences, difficult conversations, but they were trying. And that was the only thing that mattered. Karen was a few rows back, next to Miller. Both had worked tirelessly to build the case against Veronica and Arthur. And today, finally, sentencing would be handed down. The side door opened. 2 guards entered, escorting Veronica. Nothing remained of the elegant and confident woman I had known years ago. She wore the orange prison jumpsuit, unkempt hair tied in a messy ponytail, no makeup. She had lost weight. She had deep circles under her eyes. But what impacted me most was her gaze. There was no arrogance anymore, only resentment and defeat. Behind her entered Arthur Sloane, also in a prison uniform. He kept his eyes down, as if the weight of his crimes had finally broken him. "All rise," announced the bailiff. Presiding over this hearing, the Honorable Judge Mariana Santos. We stood up. The judge entered, a woman about 55, with short gray hair and an expression that revealed nothing. She sat at her bench and indicated for us to do the same. "Good morning," she began. "We are here for sentencing in the case of the People versus Vanessa Jimenez, also known as Veronica Sullivan and Arthur Sloane. The defendants have been found guilty by a jury of their peers of the following crimes: aggravated fraud, extortion, attempted homicide, kidnapping, racketeering, and conspiracy to commit murder." The judge's voice resonated in the room. Each word was like a hammer blow. "Before proceeding with the sentencing, do any of the victims wish to make a statement?" The prosecutor looked at me. I nodded and stood up. I had prepared this for weeks. I had written and rewritten my words, but when I finally spoke, it was from the heart. "Your Honor, my name is Martha Sullivan. I was a detective with the police department for 35 years. In that time, I saw many criminals, but none like Veronica. She didn't just destroy property or bank accounts. She destroyed families. She destroyed the trust between fathers and sons. She manipulated, lied, and when her lies weren't enough, she resorted to violence. My grandson has a permanent scar on his eyebrow because of her. My son lost 5 years of relationship with me because of her. And other families lost much more. Patricia Foster was sitting in the front row. She nodded with tears in her eyes. But, beyond the material or physical damage, Veronica is dangerous because she completely lacks empathy. She has no remorse. Even now, even after being exposed, she hasn't shown an ounce of regret. And that, Your Honor, is what makes her truly dangerous." I sat down. The judge nodded. "Anyone else?" Paul Vickers stood up. It was the first time I saw him in person. He looked healthier than in the video, but there were still shadows in his eyes. "Your Honor, Veronica stole 4 years of my life. She kept me from my father, who died without seeing me again. He died thinking I had abandoned him. I could never tell him the truth. I could never say goodbye. And that is something I'm going to carry all my life." His voice cracked. He sat down quickly, covering his face with his hands. Patricia Foster spoke too, recounting how Veronica had destroyed her father's memory. 2 other people spoke, relatives of Frank Miller, about the pain and confusion his death caused. Finally, the judge looked at Veronica. "Does the defendant wish to say anything before sentencing?" Veronica stood up slowly. For a moment I thought she was going to say something genuine, something human. But when she spoke, it was with the same coldness as always. "All of this is a farce. I am the victim of a conspiracy of resentful people who can't accept that their relatives loved me more than them. I did nothing wrong. And someday the truth will come out." She sat down. The judge looked at her with an expression that could have frozen hell over. "Mrs. Jimenez, in my 25 years on the bench, I have seen many criminals. Some show remorse. Others at least have the decency to remain silent. But you continue to believe you are the victim. And that tells me you have learned absolutely nothing." The judge opened a folder and began to read. "Vanessa Jimenez, for the crimes of aggravated fraud in 3 counts, you are sentenced to 12 years in prison. For aggravated extortion, 6 additional years. For attempted homicide in the case of Robert Foster, based on circumstantial but substantial evidence, 15 years. For kidnapping in the case of Paul Vickers, 20 years. For racketeering, 5 years. The sentences will be served consecutively, not concurrently. Total, 58 years in prison." A murmur ran through the room. Veronica had gone pale. "Furthermore, you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. All assets acquired through fraud will be seized and returned to their legitimate owners or heirs." The judge looked at Arthur. Arthur Sloan, by virtue of your cooperation with the DA and your full confession, and considering your participation was primarily as a legal facilitator without direct involvement in violent acts, you are sentenced to 25 years in prison. Your license to practice law is permanently revoked. You must also pay full restitution. Arthur nodded without expression. He had accepted his fate weeks ago. Court is adjourned. The final gavel bang resonated in the room. The guards took Veronica and Arthur away. She turned one last time, looking for David. But my son wasn't even looking at her. He had his arm around Leo, hugging him. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded us. I gave a brief statement I had prepared with Karen. Justice has been served today, not just for my family, but for all the families Veronica destroyed. I hope this sentence sends a clear message. No one is above the law. And manipulation, fraud, and violence always have consequences. I didn't take questions. I simply walked away with Leo and David. That night, in my apartment, the three of us had dinner together. I had made roast chicken, mashed potatoes, and warm biscuits. Leo ate with an appetite for the first time in months. David helped pour the water, clear the plate, small gestures showing he was trying to be part of the family again. "How do you feel, son?" I asked Leo after dinner, while we washed dishes together. "Relieved," he replied, "but also sad." "Sad why?" "Because my dad lost years with that woman. Because you suffered. Because we could have been happy all this time and we weren't. The past can't be changed, Leo. We can only learn from it and build something better moving forward. Do you think Dad and I can go back to how we were? No. You won't be how you were. You're going to be something different. And if you do it right, it will be something better." David appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Leo, can I talk to you for a moment?" Leo looked at me. I nodded. They went out to the balcony together. Through the window, I watched them talk. I saw David crying, saw Leo hugging him. I saw how finally, after so much pain, they were beginning to heal. 2 weeks later, David did something I didn't expect. He came to my apartment on a Saturday morning with papers in hand. "Mom, I want you to see this." They were real estate documents. I read them carefully. "Are you sure about this?" "Completely sure." He had put the house where he lived with Veronica up for sale. All the proceeds from the sale would be divided into 3 parts. One for me, one for Leo, and one for a compensation fund for the families of Veronica's victims. "That house is full of bad memories," he said. "Every room reminds me how blind I was. I can't live there anymore. I'm going to look for a smaller apartment closer to here so I can be near you guys. And Leo? Leo will keep living with you while he finishes high school if you agree. But I'm going to be present. I'm going to take him to school, go to his soccer games, help him with his homework. I'm going to be the father I should have always been." I hugged him. My son, finally back. 1 month later, I received a letter. It was from the correctional facility. The sender was Veronica Sullivan. I hesitated to open it. Karen, who was visiting me that day, told me, "You don't have to read it if you don't want to, Detective." But something made me open it anyway. The letter was brief. "Martha, you won. Congratulations. You destroyed my life, like I tried to destroy yours. I guess that makes you feel powerful, but I want you to know something. I regret nothing. Every decision I made was because this world gives nothing to women like me. I had to take what I wanted, and I would do it again. You're going to die someday, old woman, and when you do, I'll still be here, remembering how I beat you for 5 years, how I pushed your son away from you, how I made him doubt you. Those 5 years are mine, and no one can take them from me. Rot in hell, Veronica." Karen read the letter over my shoulder. "She's a psychopath to the end." "Yes," I replied. "She is." But instead of getting angry, I felt something different. Pity. Pity for a woman so broken inside that she never knew real love, who only understood the world in terms of winning and losing, taking and destroying. I tore the letter into pieces and threw it in the trash. "She can keep those 5 years, I told Karen, because I have the rest of my life with my family, and that is something all her hate can never touch." That night, David, Leo, and I had dinner together again. This time, Leo brought his guitar and played songs he had learned at school. David and I sang off-key, laughing at ourselves. In a moment, while Leo played a song his mother had taught him, I looked around my small living room, the old furniture, the photos on the walls, the smell of coffee and cinnamon, and I realized something. Veronica never had real power over me, because power isn't in money, nor in properties, nor in manipulating others. Power is in the love you give, in the roots you plant, in the family you build with patience and dedication. Veronica could rot in her cell, clinging to those 5 years she stole from me, because I had something she would never have. A family that loved me, a grandson who respected me, a son who had finally come home. And that, without a doubt, was the true victory. But the story doesn't end with revenge or punishment. It ends with something much more powerful: forgiveness, rebuilding, and the proof that love can always heal even the deepest wounds. 6 months after the sentencing, I woke up with the sun streaming through my bedroom window. It was a Saturday in May, and the city smelled of fresh rain. I stayed in bed a moment, listening to the sounds of my apartment. From the kitchen came the noise of dishes. Someone was making breakfast. I heard laughter, a deep voice and a younger one exchanging jokes. I smiled. I got up slowly, putting on my worn robe and slippers. When I got to the kitchen, I found a scene that a year ago would have seemed impossible. David was at the stove making scrambled eggs. Leo was setting the table, humming along to a song on the radio. They had made coffee, brought donuts, cut up fruit. "Good morning, Grandma," said Leo, seeing me. "Happy birthday." I had completely forgotten. 69 years old. A whole lifetime. "Oh, boys, you didn't have to do this." "Of course we did," said David, turning to look at me with a smile. "It's your special day." We had breakfast together at the small dining table. Leo told me about his final math exam, which he had aced. David talked about his new job at a smaller construction firm where the atmosphere was better and the hours more reasonable. "I don't want to miss any more time," David said, looking me in the eyes. "Money can wait. You guys can't." After breakfast, Leo pulled out a package wrapped in green paper. "This is from both of us." I opened it carefully. Inside was a photo album, but they weren't old photos. They were new. Photos from the last 6 months. Leo playing soccer with David, watching from the bleachers. The 3 of us downtown eating ice cream. A photo of David and me holding hands in front of the Bean in Millennium Park. Leo hugging me after his junior year graduation. A photo of the 3 of us planting a tree in the community garden near my house. A cherry tree. Tears filled my eyes as I turned the pages. "Do you like it?" asked Leo. "It's perfect, kiddo." Perfect. On the last page was a photo of the 3 of us sitting on my sofa, smiling at the camera, and underneath, written in David's handwriting, "Family isn't just the blood you share. It's the love you choose to give every day. Thank you, Mom, for never giving up on us. We love you." I couldn't hold back the tears. David hugged me on one side, Leo on the other. And in that moment, in that small kitchen of a modest apartment in Wicker Park, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. "I have something to tell you guys," said David after a moment, pulling away a bit. "I've been going to therapy, twice a week for the last 4 months." I looked at him surprised. "You hadn't told me. I wanted to be sure it was working before telling you. I needed to understand why I was so blind with Veronica, why I let her manipulate me so easily. And what did you discover? That I never really processed Leo's mom's death. That I felt guilty for being happy without her. And when Veronica arrived, I filled that void with the first thing I found, without caring if it was real or not. And in the process, I hurt the people who really loved me." "Dad," Leo said softly, "we already talked about this. I already forgave you. I know, son, but I'm still learning to forgive myself." "That takes time," I said, "but the fact that you're doing the work, that you're facing your mistakes, is already a huge step." David nodded. "The therapist helped me understand something else. He told me that you, Mom, were an example of strength my whole life. And that maybe that's why I never told you when I was suffering. Because I thought I had to be as strong as you." "Son, Strength doesn't mean not asking for help. It means knowing when you need support and having the courage to ask for it. I know that now, and that's why I also want you to know something. I'm proud of you. I always was, but I never told you enough. Those words, so simple, hit me deeper than anything. I'm proud of you too, David, of the man you are today, of the father you are becoming again. We spent the rest of the day together. We went for a walk in Lincoln Park. Leo ran ahead, taking photos with his phone. David and I walked slowly, enjoying the sun and the breeze off the lake. Mom, are you ever going to tell me about your work on the force? David asked suddenly. I grew up seeing you were a detective, but you never talked about it at home. I never wanted to bring that darkness into our home, I replied. I saw very hard things, very bad people. And when I came home, I just wanted to be your mom, not Detective Sullivan. But that part of you is important too. It's also part of what makes you, you. We sat on a bench under an old oak tree. What do you want to know? What was the hardest case you solved? I thought for a moment. There was one. An 8-year-old girl disappeared from her school. Everyone thought she was dead, but I kept looking. For 3 weeks I practically didn't sleep. I reviewed cameras, interrogated hundreds of people, followed every lead, no matter how small. And finally, we found her. Alive. Scared, but alive. She was hidden in a neighbor's basement. And the neighbor? Serving life without parole. But that girl, she grew up, studied medicine. She's a pediatrician now. She sends me a card every Christmas. She says I saved her life. But really, she gave meaning to mine. That's why you were so tenacious with Veronica, said David, because you know how to investigate, how not to give up. Yes, but also because it was my family. And for my family, I will always fight. Leo came running back, out of breath. Grandma? Dad? There's a street festival over there. Can we go? Let's go, I said, standing up. We went to the festival. It was a neighborhood block party with live music, food stalls, crafts. We ate corn on the cob, drank lemonade, danced to the rhythm of a band playing oldies. At one point, while Leo was buying cotton candy, David took my hands and made me dance to My Girl. I laughed like I hadn't laughed in years. People around us watched and smiled. This, said David, spinning me clumsily, this is what we should have always done. Laugh together, enjoy together. It's never too late to start, son. When we got home at dusk, we were tired but happy. Leo went to his room to do homework. David and I stayed in the living room drinking chamomile tea. Mom, there's something else I want to tell you. Tell me. I'm thinking of starting to date someone, a coworker. Her name is Elena. She's an architect. She has a 12-year-old daughter. My first instinct was to tense up, but I took a deep breath. What is she like? Kind, genuine, divorced 3 years ago. She has no interest in my money because she makes more than me. He smiled. And most importantly, when I told her about what happened with Veronica, about my mistakes, she didn't run. She listened. And she told me that we all deserve a second chance if we are willing to do the work. Sounds like a smart woman, she is, and I'd like you to meet her, but only if you're ready. I'm not going to pressure you. Does Leo know her? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Because after what happened, I need to do things right. I need us all to be on the same page. I put my hand on his. Son, you deserve to be happy. You deserve love. Just take your time. Get to know her well. And when you're sure, when you know it's real, then introduce us. Thanks, Mom. But David, one thing. Yeah? If ever, in any future relationship, you feel like someone is pushing you away from your family, from Leo, from me, promise me you're going to put a stop to it immediately. I promise. Never again am I going to allow someone to separate me from you guys. That night, before sleeping, I went out to the balcony. The city lights twinkled in the distance. I could hear the hum of traffic, the voices of neighbors, distant music from a party. I thought about the road we had traveled, the pain, the tears, the fights, Veronica and her evil, the lost years, the wounds that were still healing. But I also thought about what we had gained, the shared dinners, the laughter, the hugs, the second chances. Leo came out to the balcony, a blanket over his shoulders. "Can't sleep, Grandma? Just thinking." "About what?" "That it was worth it. Every tear, every fight, every hard moment. It was worth it to get to this moment." Leo came closer and hugged me. "Grandma, there's something I've never told you. When I was at my worst with Veronica, when I felt like no one believed me, I held on to one thought, that you would never abandon me, that no matter what, you would always be on my side. And I always will be, my boy, until my last breath. That's why I want to be like you when I grow up. Strong, brave, someone who fights for the people they love. You're already all that, Leo. You already are. Do you know what I'm going to study?" "What, kiddo?" "Law. I want to be a lawyer, but not like Arthur. I want to defend families like ours, kids no one believes, people who need someone to fight for them." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Your mom would be so proud of you. And you make me proud too, Grandma, because you taught me that giving up is never an option." We stayed there, hugged under the stars, on that small balcony of a modest apartment in Chicago. And in that moment, I understood something profound. Wealth isn't measured in properties or bank accounts. It is measured in the shared moments, in the hands held, in the stories told from generation to generation. Veronica had spent her life accumulating money that never brought her happiness, dying alone in a cell, with no one to really love her. I, on the other hand, had a grandson who wanted to be like me, a son who had come home, an imperfect but real family, and that was all the treasure I needed. 2 years later, I found myself sitting in the community garden, under the cherry tree we had planted. It was spring, and the tree had blossomed for the first time. Pink flowers covered the branches, swaying in the gentle breeze. Leo was in his freshman year of pre-law at UChicago. David had married Elena 6 months ago, in a small and intimate ceremony. I had walked him down the aisle, and when he asked me if I approved of the marriage, I told him, "Son, you're a man now. You don't need my approval, but you have my blessing, because I see how Elena looks at you, and I see how you look at her, and that is real love." Now they lived nearby, just 10 minutes from my apartment. I saw them several times a week. Elena's daughter Sophie had become very close with Leo. The 4 of them often came to have dinner with me on Sundays. It was a new family, different, but beautiful in its imperfection. Karen sat next to me on the garden bench. "What are you thinking about, Detective?" "That life takes many turns, and that the scars it leaves us make us stronger." "Do you ever regret how you handled the whole thing with Veronica?" "No. I did what I had to do to protect my family, and I would do it again without hesitation." "Do you know Paul Vickers just got married?" "He sent me an invitation. He was finally able to rebuild his life. I'm glad. He deserves to be happy after everything that happened." Karen took out her phone and showed me a photo. It was Paul's wedding. He looked radiant, surrounded by family and friends. And this is going to interest you too. Patricia Foster opened a foundation to help victims of family fraud. It bears your name, Detective. The Martha Sullivan Foundation for Family Protection. What? Why did she do that? Because you gave her back her faith in justice. Because you proved that the truth always wins if you fight hard enough for it. I didn't know what to say. I could only smile. Leo came running into the garden, a letter in his hand. "Grandma, look at this." It was a letter from the university. He had been selected for a human rights exchange program. "I'm so proud of you, my son. None of this would have been possible without you. You taught me that fighting for justice is worth it." David and Elena arrived shortly after with a picnic basket. We had a picnic under the cherry tree. We laughed, ate, told stories. At one point, while everyone was talking animatedly, I looked around, at my family, at the people I had fought so hard to protect and reunite. And I thought about Veronica, serving her 58-year sentence in a cold cell, alone, bitter. With no one to visit her, I felt no joy for her suffering. I only felt pity. Because she never understood something fundamental. True power isn't in how much you can take from others. It is in how much you are willing to give for love. And I had given everything. My time, my energy, my tears, my heart. But in return, I had received something no money can buy: a family that loved me, a legacy of justice, and the certainty that when my last day arrived, I wouldn't die alone or forgotten. I would die surrounded by love. And that love would continue to live in Leo, in David, in the generations to come. Because that is the true legacy of a mother, of a grandmother, of a woman who refused to give up. Not the properties she leaves, but the love she sowed. And that love, planted with patience and watered with tears, had finally blossomed, like the cherry tree under which we now rested. Beautiful, strong, eternal. The end. If this story touched your heart, if you have ever had to fight for your family or defend those you love, leave me a comment telling me where you are watching from. What country? What city? I would love to know that these words reached you, wherever you are. And remember, family isn't always perfect. Sometimes it's broken. Sometimes it hurts. But if there is true love, there is always hope to heal. Like if you believe in second chances. Subscribe for more stories that will make you feel, think, and believe in justice. Because true wealth isn't in what you possess, but in what you refuse to lose.